All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How we feeling?
Dimes. How you loving your Danny Dimes?
Oh, you gotta love
Lord.
Danny, don't you? Gotta love a 97-yard pick six to put the lights out.
Dude, that's
Like the
your
lights
boy.
went out last night. 97-yard pick six. Can we get Taylor Swift there? Like, I know people goof on how much they show her. At least that would have been interesting last night. Give me something as opposed to watching Brian Dable's head explode. He's got blood pressure issues, man.
Dude, that
Dable
guy's
is freaking
out.
Wow.
How
he
about
has
some of the
to-
duds in that building already this year?
terrible. Between the Giants and the Jets, it is terrible.
It's cursed. And
Yeah,
what
it really
I find
is.
funny reading some of the pieces, and I obviously don't know the deep inner workings of like play calling, but people are like, Dable let Danny Dimes down tonight. And I'm like, I can't even click on that. I can't click on that.
Yeah, that's clickbait. That's the definition of clickbait.
Because I read the headline and I'm like, well, Danny Dimes is the guy that they claimed he was sacked 11 times, and it's like Dable sewered him, and the scheming was garbage, and it's like one of the pieces was Dable let down the Giants and Danny Dimes, and I'm like, well, what about Danny
line
Dimes?
is terrible. Like, let's be honest, our boy that we had on last week would be freaking out down in New York about the Joe Plisarczyk era and how bad that line is. And, you know, that is definitely something that is obvious there, is that the line stinks. But we got to get the Jets and Giants off primetime. Like, that's something that
Flex
needs
them,
to be
dude.
established. I get it's New York, but I saw, like, this crazy stat is trending online that there is only 2 teams in the league that have not had an offensive snap holding a lead in a game, and it's the Jets and Giants.
I know,
Like,
but
I
dude,
saw
before
that
the
today,
season, you're looking at the Giants as a playoff team from the year before.
Yes.
And the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Are you going to not flex games, but change dates of games to get them
Well, you
off?
have to.
Well, you
to.
can't now. Like, TV schedules, we all work in TV. We know that's not the way it works. You know, you sell tickets, TVs get set up. It's still New York. It's a massive market. They want to be there. Even when the Yankees stink, ESPN still wants them on Sunday Night Baseball because they're the Yankees. And you're right. The Giants were in the playoffs, and the Jets had Aaron Rodgers. But through 4 weeks, I don't ever want to see those 2 teams play again. I don't ever want to see them play again. That's enough.
It is.
I've had enough.
It's ridiculous, but you're right. Like, you're allowed to start flexing in week 5, correct? Is it next week? You
I'm
start?
not sure about that, Noodle. I thought it was later in the season.
I thought I read that, but I mean, I could be wrong. But
Okay,
it's
we'll
more,
look that up.
They've got to get. I mean, eyes are on it. You're right. Like, it's watching an accident on the highway. Like, it's terrible, but you can't turn away. You're like, okay, what's going to happen next? And it's
embarrassing,
storyline, but it's
too,
not
Noodles.
good
Terrible.
football. It's terrible.
It's terrible. And you're right, Noodles. Garoppolo's saying week 5 you can start. Week 5 you can start absolutely booting Danny Dimes and Zach Wilson to the curb. And between Dable and Saleh, like 2 ball coaches freaking in New York, they hate their
but
quarterbacks.
dude, it's not. Yeah,
It's
I don't
crazy.
think you can't flex them out of a Monday night game.
Well,
You can't
I understand
flex
that.
out a Monday night or
No, you
Thursday
can't.
night. It's you're off Sunday night football and you're at 1 p.m.
That's right.
Well,
Sundays
would
you
you-
can flex. That's it.
If you would you love to trade them and be like, go to London? You play at 9:00 in the morning when
Yes.
people like. I missed that game because I was the time zone and everything. I caught it late, but you're like, that's what you need to do is send them off where, you know, eyes are going to be on it. It's good for the game, but like not the traditional. Like the people, there's a lot of people that are pissed having to watch that nonsense.
Well, you're subjected to it. I mean, it is what it is. It's still football. Like, everyone complains. You had 27 million Americans watch last night. Or probably
you're right.
a million Canadians. So, you know, in the end, the NFL is still going to win. But we'll get more into what we saw last night a little bit later this afternoon. The Jays are in action coming up later this hour. Joe Mauer will join us from Minnesota. Joe Mauer is one of the great Twins players of all time, and good buddies with Justin Morneau, good Canadian boy. He lives down there still in Minnesota, so we'll catch up with Joe in like 5 minutes. I think we have to ask him, even though I guess he would have been a part of this streak, 18 losses in a row for Minnesota in the playoffs. That is a North American sports record. 18 losses in a row in the playoffs. Like, are they addressing that in Minnesota? If you're Rocco Baldelli, the manager, are you walking in saying, guys, it ends today? Do you even address something like that? Because, like, that's thick in the air, isn't it? It has
Big
to be
time.
that your franchise has a history of losing unlike any other team we've ever
Not to the
seen.
grappler, that fraud.
Well, the
He said
Grappler's- he's
the
a
Twins
Twins
are
fan.
going to roll. They own Gosman. I'm
Is
like,
that right?
I want to
he's
ask
pro
Maurer.
Twins now.
No, he's not. He's a fraud. I was like, I like the Jays in this series. He's like, no way. Twins roll is his hashtag.
I did read that.
Yes,
That's disappointing.
Yes,
I
and
wasn't
he's like,
aware of that.
I hate to sewer him on live television, but the hashtag Twins roll. They own Gosman, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's just over.
Well, listen, Gosman does not have a great history against the Twins. That is
Dude, I get
accurate.
it, but isn't it a fresh start come playoff time? Let's be real here.
I hope so.
Wow, I
Although,
hope
do you want a
so.
fresh start? I'd prefer it to continue based on the Twins' history, right? I'd like to see 20 losses in a row, and the Jays finish this by about 7:30 tomorrow night. I
would
don't
be
think
nice,
that's going to
but-
happen, but I think the Jays win in 3. I'll get it out there. I got Jays in 3. I think they're the better team. I think they pitch better, they defend better, but it's effectively a pick 'em. I think Minnesota is a little bit of a favorite on FanDuel, but not by much. It's basically a pick 'em. But admittedly, it's not like the Jays have a rich history of winning in the playoffs either. Vladdy's never won a game in the playoffs. Bichette's never
They were
won.
up 8-1 last year.
They were up 8-1 last year.
Like, I mean,
That's
what's
right.
the bigger talking point? 18 games in a row, or you're up 8-1 and you hand it back. Like, we talk about the Leafs all the time. 7 years in a row, they've gone to the playoffs, they've won one playoff round. Like, these streaks, they're talked about all the time. Guaranteed, the OverDrive of Minneapolis or St. Paul is talking about they haven't won a game in 18. That has to be a talking point.
Oh,
there.
for sure. It's a massive amount of pressure that hangs over your team. Like, even with turnover every season, it's still you guys represent a record that no one wants to be associated with. And I would suggest that based on what's happening in the greater Toronto area, the Jays are probably lucky this game's in Minnesota because there might be like 5,000 people in the stadium if it was at the Rogers Center because of what's going on with Go Transit right now, where the Go Train, the whole system is shut down.
So
Do you
what are they
imagine
doing?
how many Jays fans come in from east, west, north via the Go Train?
Tens of thousands.
I would guess if they get 45,000 people in there, 15,000 are taking the Go Train.
All day,
Probably
maybe more.
Maybe
Probably
more.
more.
Could you imagine you got off work or you took your kids out of school, you bought tickets, and you're stuck? You're stuck on the Go Train, and
What
I don't
if they
know.
were opening at home and there's just 7,000 people there tonight? Everyone's stuck on the Go Train.
Wouldn't that be wild?
People would
Crazy.
go nuts.
The American media too would be like, "Oh, amateur hour.
these
They can't even
dummies
pack
can't
the
even
barn.
fix a
Can't even
train."
fill a barn up for a big playoff game." But
Oh, it'd be terrible.
Go Transit is taking a beating. The last I heard, they're still shut down. Like I
thought
don't know what the latest is, but we'll try to keep you updated on that.
I thought I was reading they were shuttle busing people out. Like,
Yeah, that's generally what they have to do, right? If they feel like it's going to take a long time, people are dying to get out. It's hot as hell outside.
It's 1,000
too.
degrees outside.
It's 28 degrees and you're stuck in the Go Train. That would be just a miserable experience, and you got to get people out.
So there's not like a problem where they said don't bother coming on the Go Train. You're telling me there's thousands of people on it right now and it ain't going anywhere?
That is my understanding. Is it was like almost an acute shutdown, like something malfunctioned, and the whole system is down, and that would include transit and people that were either getting in or off trains or the whole nine.
I don't often get like panicky, get me the hell out of here. That would do the trick.
Yeah, claustrophobic. Like that would, especially. I'm just hoping that there's AC and stuff. If that's a complete shutdown and it's 1,000 degrees in there,
Tough.
like now it's a safety hazard. People,
Absolutely.
No AC, I'm smashing the window and jumping off and getting out. That's it.
Well, I mean,
I mean, as of now, it's suspended. Again, they can get people out, so they would have opened the doors, and it's not like you're stuck in an elevator or something.
No, but you're opening the door to 30 degrees.
That's
and,
the issue.
It's not like you're opening the door to give fresh air and stuff, like
Right.
a breeze running through. It's a punch in the face of heat.
And
so,
it's right before rush hour. The Jays are playing in the afternoon in a playoff game, and if you live in Barrie or you live in Pickering or Mississauga, and you're like, I just got to get on that GO train, get out of town. My car's waiting for me. I want to be home for first pitch. You are in full-blown panic mode right now. And again, at this point, it's GO trains, via trains in and out of Union Station. Union Station will be an absolute mess. Like the apocalypse down there at Union Station. People trying to get out and trying to catch the Blue Jay game, which again starts later this hour down in Minnesota. And we got a guy on the line that Mr. Minnesota himself, former first overall pick for the Twins, longtime Twin, former MVP, one of the great hitters of all time. And he's gracious enough to join us literally minutes before first pitch. Let's head down to Minnesota. Here is Joe Mauer. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing well. We're psyched for the game tonight. And, from a Blue Jay perspective, it's not been great recent history in the playoffs, yet pales in comparison to your Twins where, 18 games in a row. Yeah. Does that come up a lot down there or what?
It's kind of a good, bad thing, if that makes any sense, right? We're giving ourselves a chance, in the postseason, but have just come up a little short. But yeah, no, there's a lot of excitement. This is almost like a second opening day. I know some of the guys that their numbers this year for the season that might be a little low. It doesn't matter anymore. So everybody's excited. You kind of start clean, and it's 0-0, and here we go.
Joe, the three of us are former professional athletes, and we understand come playoff time, it's a fresh start for everyone. But our producer brought up, who is a sellout, said the Twins own Gausman. Is that something that's kind of got the Twins feeling pretty good about themselves with a statement like that from our producer? They own Gausman, or is it just let's just try to get a win here?
I think. Well, like you said, it's a clean slate, and what you did in the past really doesn't matter. We talked about the Twins. Streak that they probably don't want to talk about, but right now it's 0-0, and I feel like both these teams are evenly matched. So I'm looking forward to a fun couple of days here to watch these two teams battle it out. But Gausman, I've faced him myself. He's nasty, and on any given night, he can give your team a really good chance of winning. So, the guy that's for the Twins right now, Pablo Lopez, is having a great year, and he's got that type of stuff to do the same thing. So it should be a lot of fun to watch.
Joe, when you look at the Blue Jays, what would you think would be the most dangerous attribute they have coming into this series?
I just think Guerrero. I think he's a dynamic player, and I know he has not had the year that he's wanted, but he's just an unbelievable talent. And when you have that type of talent, he's a guy on our side I'm sure everybody's a little nervous about. But, up and down the lineup, they got a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. And, it's a dangerous team. I think both of these teams are dangerous and can be dangerous moving forward.
With longtime Minnesota Twin Joe Mauer. So, your reputation is well stated and well known about, how you approached at-bats. And you were, literally a batting title champion. And your batting average was, above 300 for your career. But everyone, talks about the different approach come playoff time and the attention to detail and the ability, almost it's mandatory. Like we mentioned Gausman, you mentioned Lopez. Like you got to battle every single count, even if you're going to get out. If you can get an extra pitch or two out of these guys, it's imperative. How would you approach, a playoff at bat compared to a regular season at bat?
Well, I'd like to say that I try to approach every at-bat the same. Obviously there's a lot more attention to each at-bat, through the media, now. But, that's the thing. I was talking to a couple of the guys earlier, this week, and, they're asking about, what's it like? So it's their first time. What's it like? And I said, you know what you have to do as best you can is treat it as another game. Prepare the same way that you've always prepared. That's what got you to this point, and that's what's going to get you through and advance in the postseason. But it is exciting. It's there's a buzz around the ballpark. There's a buzz around the city, and you try to control those emotions as best you can and work those counts and pay attention to the small details, because those are the things that can come back to get you, especially if you make mistakes against the other team. The other team's a good team and they're for a reason. They can make you pay.
Probably a buzz around viewership, people watching games this year, Joe. In years past, playoff baseball, you tune into a game that starts at 8 o'clock. God knows when that thing's finishing. And with the speed of the game, it's probably, how do you think that's going to be? Just standard business, a little bit quicker? Because playoff baseball used to drag on, man. Those games would take forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the new rules that were implemented this season, play out in the postseason. Like you said, sometimes you're watching that New York Yankees Boston
yes.
series back in the early 2000s or 90s. It was you better have a couple snacks there, ready to go for the for the 4 or 5 hour game. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, not just in this series, but in across baseball, how the pitch clock and all those new rules come out to play.
We're chatting with Joe Mauer ahead of Game 1, Jays Twins this afternoon down in Minnesota. Carlos Correa has been banged up, but he's had kind of an interesting history with Minnesota where, he signed the 1-year deal, I believe it was, had a great year. Everyone thought he was going to walk, going to the Mets, and now he's back. You mentioned Guerrero a few moments ago. Is he the linchpin for the Twins, long term? If they're going to have anything cooking this postseason, it's got to be off the bat of Carlos Correa?
Yeah, he's definitely one of those leaders in that clubhouse, and he's a seasoned vet when it comes to postseason baseball. I think what he was telling me today, I think he's around his 80th game in the postseason, and he's a guy that's got a great track record, and I think with a lot of the young talent that the Twins have, first timers playing in the postseason, I think they're going to look to him to kind of see how this goes, but. Yeah, Carlos has been pretty banged up, and he's been fighting through, and dealing with a foot injury or foot issue right now. But he's definitely, we definitely knew he wasn't going to miss this. This is something that he loves, and he thrives on. So I'm excited to see him out there on the field and hopefully contributing.
So I had the chance to play a few holes of golf with your buddy Justin Morneau last year. And there it is up on TSN4. Me and my buddy TJ, we took the most awkward picture ever with him. It was like the Connor McDavid picture with those two old people at the airport a couple years ago. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But he was telling me about the legendary stories of the Morneaus and the Mauers playing hockey down in Minnesota. And he said, you're like a diehard and you're pretty good on the pond. Can you give us a breakdown and a scouting report?
Well, it's funny because I grew up playing basketball, but, being a Minnesota kid, you got to know how to skate a little bit, right? So, I would tell Justin, he's from Vancouver, and, he spent most of his hockey days indoors. I spent all of my hockey days growing up out on the pond or out down at the park outside. And I think the first time I ever skated in an arena was in my 30s. But, I always had a rink growing up, the pond to go down and skate around and really enjoy it. But Justin, we have a Wednesday game here, and we have a good time. And it's myself, Justin Morneau, Corey Koski, another
former Jay.
proud Canadian, and Rich Harden, who's another proud Canadian.
Yeah.
And then there's probably about 12 to 15 ex-NHL guys that all live in the area. That we have a Wednesday standing game in the winter, and it's a lot of fun. And obviously those NHL guys play down to our level a little bit, but it's fun to get out there and with the boys, get a good sweat in, and have a few laughs.
Good sweat, and then you guys go have 100 beers after.
That's right. You play for the tie, right? You get up there and get a good sweat in, so you can have a couple beers with the boys.
Yeah, it's all about the sportsmanship, right? It would be rude if you didn't do that afterwards. Well, we won't ask you who you're rooting for. I think everyone understands you're on the Twins, but it should be a fun few days here, and enjoy it, Joe. We really appreciate you finding some time for us today.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to it. It should be a great series, and excited for some postseason baseball.
Enjoy it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
There he is, Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer, Mr. Minnesota himself.
There is
first overall pick, smoothest swing ever. Such a smooth swing.
Yeah, there's a huge contingent of, he's right, like it's a lot of NHL players that are from Minnesota that have retired there and stayed there and that. I can imagine that's a pretty good skate. Probably gets a bit gritty, though. I bet you you know how it gets. The guys get a little competitive. They'll dig into the corners and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to watch that.
Well, Mauer's a big dude. Morneau's massive.
Yeah.
Like, if you post that pic again, I'm not small. My buddy TJ's not small, and he looks like a monster.
Dude, whenever I was like on a baseball field,
like I'm 6'2",
you look
205.
like such a dork. You're just
I
like,
do.
Hey, let's take a picture, pal.
We're grabbing his arm. We're like, can we get a pic? He's like, sure, man, I guess.
That is the McDavid picture.
It's
we
the
should put that picture beside the McDavid picture.
That's the McDavid picture.
100%. Yeah. Now you remember how happy that couple was? And I feel bad for them. They did nothing wrong.
Oh, they were ecstatic. It's Connor McDavid. It wasn't them. It was him. You know, he was the one that was like, I can't believe this. It was a hostage.
It was a hostage video. Yeah, for sure. We got to somebody's got to put them side by side. That picture and the McDavid picture. Because I think they're close. They're a lot closer than you think.
Exactly. Morneau was like, all right, I guess, man. Sure. We could do that. Yeah,
but
we can take a pic.
Baseball players, whenever I was like behind a batting cage or just around them, because NBA players, even football players, you're like, these guys are going to be massive. But baseball players are big dudes, man.
Yes.
They are big dudes.
Mm-hmm. They're massive. They really are massive human beings. And anyway, that was cool. Shout out to Joe Mauer. And again, of course, he's on the Twins bandwagon, as you would expect. The Grapplers on the Twins bandwagon, as you would not expect. But that has come to our attention earlier this hour. That's very disappointing.
That was a sewer job, though. Such a sewer job.
Sewer job.
It was just in the group text. All he said, and I can read it back to you, there was no hashtag, I don't think. I might have to look back and see if there's a hashtag.
Maybe I was mistaken about the hashtag.
And the Grappler's the biggest Blue Jay fan in the league.
All he said was, Gausman has been awful in his career versus them. 1-4 in his career with a 6.35 ERA. So all he did was point the stat out.
But he said, Noodles, Twins will roll.
Let's bring in give the Grappler the mic here for a moment. Grappler, explain yourself.
I don't think there's much to explain here. I mean, I don't think I'm rooting one way or another. It's just
did you say Twins roll?
I said Twins are going to roll, and then stated my reasoning by bringing up the Gausman numbers, which I think is perfectly legitimate.
Yeah, but you got to get to 27 outs, Grappler. Like, fine, let's say they run Gausman out early and he gives up 4 or 5 and he gets out, but this bullpen, I think, can keep them in a game. Who's to say the Jays' bats don't come alive? They win 8-7.
They absolutely could.
Anything's possible.
But I also don't think their bats have done much over the last 2 months of the season to prove that they could actually make that happen.
That's valid analysis. I'm not arguing against that, Grappler. I didn't see it coming where the Grappler pulls a 180.
But
between Luke Wilson and the Grappler, I've had a lot of disappointment in my life the last month and a half.
But you've just heard Joe Mauer say that it doesn't matter what you've done in the regular season. You start with zeros today. Mm-hmm. And this is where if Vladdy has a good run here, nobody's going to care what he did in
it's amazing how
games.
Whenever, and you're right, Noodles, it's the ultimate redemption. Like if the Jays win, who cares how they find a way to win? But if they get through this series, nobody is concerned about how they got in 89 wins. Where's Alek Manoah? Like none of that stuff. It's completely. It's already obviously dimming. Like it will come back up again if something goes awry the next 2 or 3 days. But you get into the ALDS, you expand your life. All of a sudden, you start to build up. A playoff resume. A lot of things can go the way of the Blue Jays here in the next 48 to 72 hours. But it's on them to do that, And there's the play-by-play. Look at the two pictures here. It's an eerie. I don't think I'm holding his arm, but it wouldn't shock me because I thought Morneau was going to basically run for the hills and say, "Guys, I'm out of here. It's been fun. Thank you."
So you're
but I have
playing
to leave.
18 holes with the guy.
Well,
and then on the 10th hole, you said, "Hey, can we take a pic?"
No, so he was out there with our buddy Danny. Dan Quinn was taken because Morneau was in town and wanted to come up and play Coppenwood. A lot of people end up doing that. I'm sure you have similar situations where guys want to come up. So Danny's like, "Here, I'll take you out." And TJ and I were playing. Can't remember how it all worked out, but we basically joined on the back nine with them. We had either caught them and they were playing as a twosome, we were as a twosome, and Danny was like, "You want to play?" We're like, "Absolutely." And Danny got stiffed. I guess he could have been in that picture too. He probably took it. But we were, just playing golf with them and talking with them. And then after 18, we said, "Hey, you think we can grab a pic?" And I don't think TJ's got his teeth in. I got a shirt actually, that's a cool shirt. It's a good shirt.
It's all right.
I like that shirt. It's a great shirt.
Luckily,
I just
lost
don't
a lot
see
of
you
weight
as
there.
pick guy.
I'm generally not. I generally don't do that, but it was probably my buddy that was bothering him, and I said, "Fine, I'll get in there too."
Hold on a second. He's not pick guy. He posted a picture of him in Fleetwood the other day too.
Yes,
online.
I did. Well, my mate.
You are pick guy.
My mate Tommy
you are
Fleetwood.
Pick guy.
I am if I'm playing golf with Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Morneau. I'll happily do that. I've taken pictures with you on the course. I posted them on Instagram. It's out there. I'll post a pic every once in a while if the mood is right.
Man, oh man, that's just name dropping. Right. But that picture,
Tommy
honestly,
Fleetwood, my mate.
Yeah, your mate. But look at those pictures. I forgot about the look on McDavid's face.
Terrified. Absolutely terrified. And I love that couple. They are my favorite because you can tell they're just so excited. They're like, "There
happy.
He is. Come on, I got to get a pic." And they're sending it back to their family, their kids, probably the whole nine.
Oh, yeah.
And there is an eerie similarity between us and Morneau and that couple and McDavid.
The picture, the look on Morneau's face that's what it says it all, because he's like, "All right, let's get this over with."
That's enough. Like, I already played golf. It's great. I have to leave now. I'm sure walking off 18, we're like, "You need to grab a bite? We could grab a bite if you want to grab." And I'm sure he was like, "Actually, I have to leave," but I appreciate the invitation. All right, so Jays Twins, we'll keep an eye on that like we always do. The Leafs were in action last night, a number of things to get into on that front. So we'll look back on what we saw to the Leafs, and we're a week away from opening night, right? We got confirm and deny still to come later this afternoon. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We got Mike Johnson coming up. Johnny will join us just after 5 o'clock. The Leafs losing in overtime last night. And Sheldon Keefe wasn't ecstatic with the play, called it somewhat of a sloppy game. Samsonov played 62 minutes, 61 minutes, and didn't look great. But it's the preseason. I'm not. We do this every year. The score line doesn't really matter. What the star players look like doesn't really matter. What I found interesting was it got a little bit chippy at times last night. And I wonder if even though Reaves wasn't on the ice for a lot of the dust-ups, the fact that Reaves was around factored in possibly last night. Like, did we get our first example? I think of that Jack Guy kid who I think would fight Reaves, and I wouldn't be shocked if he does fight him at some point this year. Was he looking at Robertson, I think it was, and he thought, maybe I'll give this guy a smack. And then maybe I won't, because if I do, I might have to fight Reaves. Right. Like, that's kind of the example.
It's the same as last year where guys were running around. There were 2 or 3 examples where I was on the panel, and I just clipped a couple things, and I told James, I'm like, I just want to show this because I hate it. Guys were slapping Austin Matthews in the head. They were jumping on top of him. One was against Philly. One was against somebody else. I'm telling you, that stuff slows down considerably when you have that guy out there. Noodles,
intimidation.
Yeah,
I 100% agree, because intimidation still works, and the people who think it doesn't haven't been on the ice to have to maybe potentially face that repercussion. Mm-hmm. And again, that sounds like, old guy yelling at the clouds. It's not, we lived it, in our careers. It's different now, but intimidation is still there. It is part of the sport. Not every team has it. And I argued with Jonas a couple weeks ago. He said, well, the Leafs have always had a tough guy. Not really. I mean, Wayne Simmons was tough as nails, but he wasn't intimidating to the other team to the point where, like, that guy's the toughest guy in the league. That's what the Leafs have now. Ryan Reaves, Milan Lucic, and there's probably 2 or 3 other guys that are in that conversation nightly. And the Leafs have one of them. So that's the difference. It's not Kyle Clifford fights and Wayne Simmons fights, and there's some guys who fight. You have the fighter, the number one guy, or one of them. Right. That's the difference. And intimidation still works. And I agree with you, Hayes. You think about it, and then you got to think twice, going, okay, if I give this guy a smack, somebody on my team's getting a smack if it's not me. And there's repercussions. So there's a thought process that comes with it.
Yeah, and I think with the Ryan Reaves situation, among others, Lucic would factor in here too, especially where he is in his career. 2 things can be true. Right. With Reaves, he will very likely be the least productive player on the ice when the play is ongoing. When we're talking 5-on-5 production, he very likely will be that player. He'll be the least productive, but he's also a sheriff. He's going to be, I think, a big part of their identity in terms of their voice, in terms of what he brings in the room, what he brings off the ice, energy, morale. I think he makes this team more interesting personally from an entertainment standpoint. So there are multiple things that can factor in here. If you're simply looking at Ryan Reaves' 5-on-5 production, then you're going to get that answer, and you're going to be proven right. That answer is going to be supplied for you. You're going to look and say he plays 7 minutes a night. You're going to
look at stats and say you're going to say the whole year, why'd you bring this guy in?
And that's going to happen, and I understand. And I'm not going to argue against that because it's going to be there's truth in that. He's going to get hemmed in his own zone sometimes. He's not going to score a lot of points. There's no argument there, and I don't think the Leafs have ever made that argument. The argument that the Leafs have made, and it's one that I think is also true, is he brings other characteristics and other valuable assets that they want and they believe they need. And as a result, they're going to allow the other stuff to fly. And I think you kind of witnessed that last night, and I think you're going to witness it throughout the year. Like when he's on the ice, you notice him. He's massive. He's a monster, and he hits like a truck. And he can fight, and he hasn't had to do that yet, but he will at some point. It's going to happen. And there are guys that are takers in this division. That Jack Guy kid is tough as nails. He will fight anybody.
Might be 5 tops, to be honest with you.
Well, but Lucic is one.
They're the right guys. They're the right 5 guys.
Tanner Jeannot's one. Like there are guys in this division.
Ottawa has that Zach McEwen.
I think he'd fight. I think he'd fight him.
McEwen will fight. Yeah. You're right. There's a handful of guys, but it's just a different dynamic. Brad Treliving, he used the word snot. He wanted some players with some bite, some snot. Like Max Domi plays with that. Bertuzzi plays with that. Obviously, Reaves plays with that. It's just a little different attitude, a little different look. We talked about it all the time. Nothing's changed of the spine of this team. The exact same guys are coming back. What they did is instead of finishing out the team around them with the exact same players, the Jerry Malgins, and you go right down the list. What they did is they brought in different types of players. And guys, to their credit, Tyler Bertuzzi's a top-tier player. He's a top 6 player in the National Hockey League, but he does play a different game. Max Domi's been a top 6. I think he's a top 9 for sure.
And Noodles, you put all of them together, it's for years, opposition snickered and joked about coming into Toronto, and if they didn't have their A game, it's one of the easiest nights, they described it, in the league.
Yeah.
It was just like there was no contact, there was no hitting, there was no physicality, no animosity. I just like the idea, and you saw teams like Boston last year during the regular season and Vegas. It's like, you're going to take them down. You're going to take a chunk out of you. Like it's just like, okay, good teams, they're almost like sore losers a little bit, where it's like, we don't like that you're taking 2 points, and we're going to take a little chunk out of you just because we don't like it. Mm-hmm. And the second element, it is. It's just like there's an attitude problem, and they're almost sore losers. It's like, I can't stand that you're beating us 4-1, and we're going to have a little bit of a punch in the face contest because we don't like losing 4-1. And we're sorry, and we apologize to all the people that don't like it, but that's just the way it's going to be. Sometimes teams are like that.
Yeah.
And the other way that those guys can help is if there's a sleepy night, there's nothing going on, offensive guys are a little bit flat, and they just go out and cause some problems. Like, it works. It energizes you. It says, you know what? That guy's involved. That guy's engaged. I better get my ass in gear.
Yeah, and listen, not all of them are going to work. You know, we do this every year where you're like, I love that guy, I love this guy, that was a great. It doesn't always work, and it's not. And
the other thing is, Hayes, they're not the Broad Street bullies from the 70s.
They're not. No.
Like, they're just some guys that play a little bit differently. That's what's been here in the past.
Right, and Reaves is the most extreme example, like the most extreme example, where Bertuzzi is he wants to make money, he wants a long-term deal, he's got to put points up. Right.
Dude, watch Bertuzzi play. Yeah. He's a hell of a player.
Yes, he's a very smart player. I think, Max Domi is a skilled player who generally, where he goes, that first year, it pops, right? You don't know what's going to happen beyond that. I will say the Domi story, and I don't think this was intentional. I mean, they brought him in here because he's a veteran. It was a one-year deal. I think it was economically savvy. He's getting paid $3 million. He wants to win. He wants to be here. There's a lot of elements that I think they look at Max Domi and say, we want that, even if it was Max Smith. But from a marketing perspective, and I know Leaf fans don't want to hear this because MLSE already makes billions of dollars.
Yes.
But it is right in front of them. Like, whenever he throws a hit, he doesn't even throw a hit. He just bumps into someone. Fans are standing up down at that building. I mean, Domi rings out at Scotiabank Arena.
Great opportunity, man.
Domi rings out like very few players.
Okay.
But no, but the point is, I'm just
hashtag?
saying, like, his name, he is who he is. Like, it's Ty's kid. And
no kidding. And the fans love his old man.
Yes.
So it's like they just see the name. They know exactly when he's on the ice. I just hope he doesn't get caught up in saying, because you can almost feel the energy when he's like getting in on a forecheck. Fans are like, "Oh,
here we go."
Yeah, it's like he's got name recognition already. He's just got to go out and play hockey, and he can rough it up. He's just got to figure out how to play it to a T. Because there's a way for him that he can play it exactly to a T. Sometimes it doesn't have to be Reaves, or it doesn't have to be Bertuzzi. He can be the guy to get that building riled up. Just go start some problems, and if you're going to he's a good fighter. Like, he'll fight somebody, he'll kick somebody's ass. He's got a great opportunity to he's got to learn how to understand the timing of it, and he'll be dynamite. But dynamite in that building.
He just has to be comfortable in his own skin, and what I mean by that is he can't be like David Clarkson, too excited early on because of the name, because of the fanfare. All of that is just go out and play. He's a good player, and he doesn't have to be the guy. He's a supporting staff player, which is perfect for him. It is eerie watching him interviewed this morning. Like, if you sawed his face off from the nose up, okay, the eyebrows are Ty. Like, it's Ty's face from the top up, and then the bottom, he's got a big smile. Obviously, he's a very charismatic guy, but it's just like when you see the son of a player that you played against or somebody that you're like, God, it's just, that's Ty. There's so much of his recognition, but it's the eyebrows. I don't know if you see it's got Ty's eyebrows.
Domi look there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure that's been expressed to him from Keefe to Tree Living, possibly to Shanahan, maybe Ty, saying, hey, like, he's not Ty Domi, and everyone knows that. Like, he's not a fighter. He will fight. He can fight. And to your point, if he picks his spot appropriately, that place will go crazy if he comes in and, Matthews gets hits from behind and his gloves come off, that place will go nuts.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean about having just a pulse on the timing of it, how he can be so effective? Like, maybe if somebody hits the goalie later in the period, he just kind of, I don't know. If he can figure out the timing of it, which is the tricky part, because anybody can run around and do stupid stuff, but if he can get the timing down on when to, be that guy, it's a dream situation for him.
And the timing is spontaneous. If you're pre-planning it, then it's not going to work, because then it's going to be like, why did he just snap that? That didn't even make sense.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's got to be something that just happens organically. But they've brought in, when it comes to Reaves, Domi, and Bertuzzi, you add Nyes to the mix, who is still relatively new. Joseph Wall, if you've got Klingberg, if he's going to play, there's a different feeling, I would say, about a team that is still very similar, like you pointed out, Noodles. It's still the Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley show. Samsonov's in net, keeps behind the bench. Like, it's still a lot of the guys who skated off the ice after Game 5 are still prominent players on this team and are still expected to carry things moving forward.
Joe from the Bridge put up the picture, like the side by side. Do you not see it? Like
yes.
If you go from the nose up, like they are just. I mean, listen, my son is my face with a blonde wig, which is traumatic, but it's like Ty and him look exactly the same. It's awesome. I just, when I look at Max, I'm like, I see Ty. It's
a cool story. Like it is a cool story. It's got a real opportunity to be a kind of an interweaving storyline throughout the season, right? What happens with Max Domi? What happens with Tyler Bertuzzi? Ryan Reaves, etc. And, to their credit, even though those guys have just shown up and gone about their business, it has taken some of the shine off of, what's Matthews doing, what's Marner doing, what's Nylander doing, Riley, Tavares, etc. And I think part of that is because those guys have been here for so long. Like, it's just so routine. Like, Morgan Riley's been here for a decade. Matthews, Marner, and Nylander are going into their 8th season. Tavares into his 6th. Like, it's been a long time with these guys here in Toronto and as Maple Leafs. So, I guess what we're saying is it feels like there's a platform for a few other players to really make their names pop here, because the other guys are going to do what they're going to do. Matthews rips home 55 this year. He's on the marquee, as you would expect. Marner's going to score 100 points. All that kind of stuff is expected. But if other players, throw their hat into the ring in terms of bringing different entertainment values to the story, I think that's going to go a long way, and I think this is a marketplace that is really craving that. Mike Johnson in about 20 minutes. The Monday Nighter last night was not the best, right?
Not the best.
That was a Louis Domingue Monday Nighter last
Not the
night.
best.
And I know you're crap talking our team, but Luke posted it today. We're 9-2-1.
Yeah. Like you guys are picking a lot of winners. Last night was maybe the layup of the millennium, but it's all good.
I don't think so, dude. There was the option of the Giants. The Giants,
your Danny Dimes and that line.
Like, Grappler, what do you got to say about the Giants? They suck so bad.
But what's my record? Take a look at the screen there. What do you see? I see 6-4-1. I see a pretty good record. I see a pretty good record. So yes, you're playing well. You're playing well, but you're 2 up through 4 holes, 5 holes, maybe 1 up through 4. Like, I'm right there. Yeah, you birdied a couple of holes. I threw one in tight, made a big putts. I am not letting you. You're not going anywhere here. If you think this is going to be a Hovland,
let's just
Aberg
say you skank-balled one off
Koepka.
The first tee. You skank-balled one.
Yep. T-ball one. First tee, I was looking for a breakfast bowl, admittedly week 1. And you guys, you piped one right down the chute. But it's all good. We got a long season ahead of us. All right, confirm and deny still to come. Bruce Boudreau coming up later this afternoon as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. And I'll tell you what, I really still hate this new Twitter where they've got this new tab that immediately launches whenever you open the app. If you're not on Twitter, you don't know, you probably don't care. But it's just got all these bizarre, follows.
Like when it says sent from Earth.
Yeah, and it's just got all these different accounts that I don't follow. And you know what it does is it sends out or it pops up fake accounts. And I almost fell for this, a fake Woj account about James Harden being traded. And because I just popped open Twitter, I looked at the For You tab, and it was like a fake Adrian Wojnarowski account saying Harden's been traded. And I almost came on the air being like, breaking news, but it's not. It's a fake dummy account. It's got to stop because it's going to jam up people like me on the air.
There's some funny accounts. You're right. There's a sign that says following, and then there's one that says for you.
Right.
Right? But the one, I don't know why, because I'm not super political, but there's one called Justin Trudeau's Ego, which is, it's almost like, remember Peter Chiarelli's, what is it, fake Peter Chiarelli or whatever?
The parody account, yes.
Yeah, it's a parody account. God, there's some funny accounts.
Yeah,
I missed that Peter Chiarelli.
I cannot stand when you're just, I agree with you, Hayes. Like, you're scrolling through it and you're like, I don't follow any of these people. It's like, my boss thinks I'm smart, but I'm not. And it's like, follow this plan to get rid. And I'm just like, this is garbage. This is not what I wanted.
Right.
I don't want this.
Especially dummy parody accounts. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing if it's a legitimate NBA account and for whatever reason they're giving me lineup updates of the Phoenix Suns. Okay, I don't really need that, but fine. It's legitimate. But a parody account, and like, I guess on the Harden front, it sounds like he's going to show up at Philly, which I think is the worst case scenario. You don't want this guy anywhere near your program because he's going to show up because he wants to collect money. You know, he wasn't there yesterday, and now he's going to show up, and who knows what the hell he's going to do, but he hasn't changed his mind. He wants out. He hates Daryl Morey, and he's there to execute a plan of destruction.
But like, what happened that he hates it so much? Like, what the hell does he hate? Like,
who knows? With him, it's impossible. Oh, he hated Oklahoma City at one point. Then it was Houston. Then it was Brooklyn. Now it's Philly. Wherever he goes next, if he goes somewhere else,
but he's got 1 year left, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So couldn't he suck it up for 1 year and then just do whatever the hell he wants?
You would think so. Yeah, but not in the world of James Harden. It's not going to happen.
I honestly think he just, Hazy, I think he just likes the drama. I think there's some narcissism there where he's like, I got to somehow steal some headlines and be the spotlight here. He can't live without it. His behavior proves it.
He's going to get it. Mike Johnson coming up in the next hour. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.